Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I want to first start off today just by thanking you all for all of the feedback and encouragement that you gave me on my most recent video, my 100th video on YouTube, and my first full year on the channel here. So I really appreciate it. It meant a lot. But when you put out video number 100, you then have to turn around and put out video number 101. Which just doesn't sound as exciting. But I can promise you we're going to have a fun, nostalgic hangout here in the den today. Because as I was sitting on a conference call earlier this morning, I was looking around the den thinking about what I could talk about today. And I saw my little magazine rack over in the corner. And you've seen it. It's your standard 80s wooden magazine rack that used to sit next to every dad's recliner back in the day. And it would hold things like newspapers and Sports Illustrateds and TV guides. Well, there are some really cool old vintage magazines and books in that rack that I don't think I've ever really shown you guys here on the channel. So I thought it might be fun to go through some of them today. There's movie stuff, TV stuff, sports stuff, basically just a stack of nostalgia. So if you're ready to thumb through some of it, and of course talk about our cassette of the day, come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome back to the den, where we've got another great day. Today's TV show of choice, we've got some original G1 Transformers going, which is always a great one to have going in the background. But we need to do today's cassette of the day. And I'm going with an audio cassette today for a tape that I listened to a lot as a kid. In fact, it may have been one of the first 3 or 4 audio cassettes that I ever actually had, and owned, that was mine, that I kept in my room and I listened to on my little shelf system boombox. And that is Forever Your Girl by Paula Abdul. Now I know, not the most manly album here, but you guys know I've got plenty of other stuff over there, Van Halen and Motley Crue and Dokken and all that kind of stuff too. But every once in a while, you just want to go back and listen to some of the pop music from your youth, And I had kind of forgotten, for whatever reason, I always thought that the first song on here was actually Forever Your Girl, the title track. But it turns out that's the first track on side 2, which means that when I had this tape in my bedroom, I probably had it on side 2 most of the time, to the point where my brain is telling me that that's how the album started. So I kind of had it backwards, But this, along with some of the other pop music that I had at that time, I had Bobby Brown, Every Little Step. That tape got a lot of rotation. I also had Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation, which was another great one. Just fun stuff that you listen to when you're a kid. Let me open this up and we'll take a look at it, closer look at it. Now, who doesn't remember the days of sitting down to listen to a tape, or later years, a CD, and opening up the paperwork, the little jacket, the sleeve with all the pictures of the band or the artist, and then, sometimes, probably most of the time, song lyrics. So you could sit there and read through them while you listen, which was an experience that I don't think today's kids ever have. I think they look at the lyrics that pop up on their whatever they're streaming it through, Spotify or Pandora or whatever, maybe, but I don't know. But I will say that I don't have the best vision anyway, and it's gotten worse as I've gotten older, but these have got to be the smallest song lyrics I've ever seen printed on an audio cassette jacket. I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to pick that up over the video, but it is just tiny. I can't even tell for sure that those are song lyrics. but they're there. I'm pretty sure. Somehow they fit them all on there. But yeah, this tape was full of hits. The ones that jump to mind are Opposites Attract, with the video with the cartoon cat dancing alongside Paula Abdul. You had Straight Up. We were actually at a dance competition for my daughter. My daughter is a competitive dancer, you know, does hip hop and all these things. And we oftentimes find ourselves at dance competitions, but there was a group there that danced to Cold Hearted Snake. And I had not heard that song in years, and it's on here. Side 2, I believe. Yeah, Cold Hearted. Yeah, and of course, like I mentioned, the title track, Forever Your Girl, that's the song that I always associate with this album. When I put it in the tape player and hit play, that was usually the song that came on first in my tape deck. But yeah, was anyone else a big fan of this back in the day? Okay guys, we're going to stay right here at the Ottoman for the rest of today's video because I did grab a stack of like 4 or 5 different magazines that I'm just going to thumb through really quickly. This isn't going to be like a deep dive. You know, we're not going to read all the articles or anything. We're just thumbing through, right? Looking for cool ads or, you know, cool pictures or whatever the case may be. And we've got a little bit of variety here. So I just like to grab, you know, random nostalgic looking magazines when I'm out and about. Same thing with catalogs, and we've done some videos in the past thumbing through some catalogs, so this will be kind of similar here. But the first one is a magazine called Starlog, the Science Fiction Universe. Now, I wasn't too familiar with this as a kid. I think I had a friend who had an older brother that had a stack of these in his room, if I'm remembering correctly. But they're cool to look at now. Like, as you can see right here, you've got John Carpenter's newest adventure, Big Trouble in Little China, on the set with Kurt Russell, which is cool. I love that movie. So, and then on the back, you've got a pretty epic ad here for Ghostbusters, the role-playing game, which is just awesome. So yeah, so let's see what's in here. Looks like you got some Doctor Who. I've never been the biggest Doctor Who fan, but it's really just because I'm kind of not familiar with it. You know, maybe if I gave it a chance, it might be something that I enjoy. I don't know. And I think about things like this, and I think about how, you know, before the days of the internet, how did fans, you know, follow their fandom? You know, the franchises and the properties that they loved. How did they keep up on, you know, news and rumors and all kinds of like interviews? Like, there wasn't anything to do that with other than like some of these magazines, I think. So there's Steve Guttenberg with Ali Sheedy, so that must be for Short Circuit. Another great movie. You know, Steve Guttenberg, he was in some hits back in the 80s. He was kind of everywhere for a little while there. Maybe it was the Stonecutters in The Simpsons who kept him a star. If you know, you know. Here you've got Life Among Aliens. Really cool. I will sit down someday and read some of these articles. Never a big Star Trek fan, but again, I'd be open to it. I'd be open to sitting down and trying it. I think I've heard that I would probably enjoy like The Next Generation for sure. I have read through some of the comic book adaptations that they did for that show. Look at little Drew Barrymore here. Just awesome. Fan networks, so I guess you've got, oh, and you can kind of like comics, you can order the back issues. Oh, there's Tim Curry in Legend. And I apologize if some of this is getting cut off. I did the best I could with the angle. Yeah, just a magazine full of 80s sci-fi and fantasy movie information, you know? How can you not love that? You know, the people that subscribed to this back then, are these the types of people that were going to the early iterations of comic book conventions? I imagine so. I would have been right there with them. All right. Yeah, very cool. Let's move on to the next one. All right, next up, we're diving quickly into the world of sports. I know sports isn't the most popular subject here on this channel, but it's something that I love and that I've always loved. and I have a lot of memories of sports from when I was a kid, and this Sports Illustrated issue right in my wheelhouse. So this is May of 1992. Sports Illustrated, we've got On a Collision Course. And of course, you've got Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler playing for the Portland Trail Blazers. Yeah, May of 92, so I would have been 11 years old, just getting ready for summer break. Oh, and then of course, what else would you have on the back of an 80s magazine but a cigarette ad? Am I right? Merit Ultima. All right, so let's thumb through this one really quick and see if there's anything fun. Love that Chrysler minivan ad. You know, I would actually love, I've talked about this a little bit before, I would love an old van. I'd prefer like the big Ford Econoline with the curtains and everything, with all the retro wood grain accents, but I would also take a vintage minivan if it was in good running order, or if it was something that I could fix up. I think it'd be fun to road trip across the country in one of those. And that's one of the things on my bucket list, is to take a road trip all around the country for like a month and go see all my favorite like filming locations from all my favorite movies and TV shows, and just not really have like a plan, just have a loose plan, so I could go to any antique store or any roadside diner that I ever wanted to see. That's definitely on the bucket list. So, and if I'm still doing YouTube by the time that becomes a real thing, I will definitely document that. Here we got Mario Lemieux with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I've taken a recent interest in some of the Pittsburgh sports teams just because I've been having to travel there so much for work. I've had to go a couple times. I say so much. It's really only been a few times, but there's a chance I'm probably going to have to go back. One of our main headquarters buildings is up there. So there's Andre Agassi in his prime, sitting next to a Pepsi cooler. That's a pretty cool picture. Yeah, he's got the AirTech Challenges on. I really want those shoes. Yeah, so I was gonna try to catch a Pirates game last time I was up there, but the timing just didn't quite work out. But and as a Cowboys fan, I'll probably never be a Steelers fan, but I kind of like watching the Pirates and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I remember these playoffs too. Wow, now there's a throwback. Geo. Look at that car. Now I think these Geos were not good cars, right? They're kind of pieces of junk, I think, from what I remember. Not the most reliable, but they sure were cool little cars in the early 90s. Got a boxing section. Refreshing the Olympic spirit. I just love ads like this. I actually had a subscription to Sports Illustrated Kids when I was younger. Anyone remember that one? There's Patrick Ewing. Yeah, so the Knicks and the Pistons, that had to have been in fact I remember them being some pretty physical series back then. Same thing with the Pacers and the Knicks. Just always, knock down, drag out physical basketball. There's Grandmama Larry Johnson for the Charlotte Hornets, wearing his Converse. I always thought those were cool. They remind me a little bit of the Jordan 8 Aquas with the color scheme there. Let's see, anything else? And see, this is after the Phillies had already switched to their newer logo. I actually preferred their 70s and 80s logo and color scheme. And they'll break those back out every once in a while. Newport, alive with pleasure. Now talk about a classic baseball uniform right there. Never goes out of style, the Chicago Cubs. Just classic. Classic, classic. And more car ads. Probably not a whole lot else that's going to be of interest here, so we'll move along. Look at these universal remotes. That's kind of cool. I remember this this logo and this branding. I wonder wonder if that brand is still around. I feel like I've seen them fairly recently. You got another van ad. And that's it. Let's keep moving. Okay, shifting gears entirely, as I like to do, we're going to go from Sports Illustrated to DJ's Full House Family Scrapbook from Scholastic. Why do I have this? Well, why do I have a lot of things? That's a question for another day, but when I see things like this, I think this was probably a half-price book, if I had to guess, or maybe an estate sale. Maybe an estate sale now that I think about it. You know, the grandparents always seem to have a room set up where they had stuff for the grandkids when they would come visit, and you find cool stuff in those rooms when you go to estate sales, and that's probably where I found this, but check that out. And this is clearly from the early parts of the early seasons of Full House. Well, there's Becky about to have babies, so maybe not. Maybe just that cover picture, but I just love these colors. I know they're going to be a little bit muted when they're played back, but these are some bright 90s colors when I'm looking at this here in person. Hot pink and pastels and sea green and lavender. And of course you got the graphics and the hairstyle. How funny. So I guess this is where she tells us this is her scrapbook that she has kept for the adventures that she's had at the house, you know, at the Tanner household. Donna Jo Tanner. Did I know that was her name? Surely I knew that. Donna Jo. Yeah, I knew that. If that would have come up on trivia, I think I would have gotten that. And then here you got middle sis Stephanie Tanner. And of course, younger sis Michelle Tanner. R.I.P. to the great Bob Saget, Danny Tanner. I mean, what a legend in his time. You know, he would have, you know, I remember catching like a rerun of Full House after school. Usually they ran like back to back or 2 or 3 episodes in a row. And then like that weekend, seeing him again on America's Funniest Home Videos and just thinking, wow, this guy's got the best job ever. And you got Uncle Jesse. Of course, you got him with a guitar here. He was always a big musician on the show. And Joey Gladstone with the funny voices and the impressions. And, you know, I related to him a little bit because, I should say I relate to him a little bit because he was always the adult that like, kind of refused to grow up. You know, he had like toys in his room and still watched cartoons and things like a lot of us I feel like can relate to. And here we've got Rebecca Donaldson Katsopoulos. You know, and I didn't know that this actress, Lori Loughlin, I didn't know or I didn't remember that she was in a lot of like 80s teen comedies, movies, before she ever did Full House. And, you know, of course she was in Rad, and several others that I can't think of the titles of right now, but if you just scroll through Tubi, you'll find, and like go to like the 80s section, you'll find at least 4 or 5 different 80s teen, you know, rom-com style movies that had her as the main actress. And I did not know that until later in life. The first place I ever saw her was when she was at Aunt Becky. These almost look like, this looks like a still from when they were recording maybe the intro, like the opening credits. You know? This is a Christmas time episode, looks like, and maybe like a New Year's. You know, and this is an old book, obviously, but I like the grain that some of these that the photos have to them. I just prefer the look of old film grain than I do to, you know, crystal clear digital stuff that you see now. We've talked about that a ton. More memorable moments. Now that's real early right there. That had to have been one of the very first episodes. Cut it out. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Oh, who could forget the episode where she stops eating and doesn't take care of herself? She's not healthy. feel like a lot of shows in the 80s and early 90s had an episode similar to that. I know I'm rewatching. I like to watch 90210 in the summertime. As we're heading into summer, I've started watching some of that again, and I think Kelly is going through something similar right now in 90210. It's, And there you have it. We went from Sports Illustrated to DJ Tanner's Full House Family Scrapbook. Let's keep moving. Now I'm realizing this next one is very similar to what we just looked through, but this time for a movie. So we've got another scrapbook. I don't know if this was like a common like storybook, scrapbook type thing that they used to do back in the 80s and 90s, but this one is for my favorite movie, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And I may have shown you guys a little bit of this in a prior video, but we'll flip through it really quickly. I'm sure it's going to be chock full of iconic imagery from one of the best movies ever. Like I said in a very recent video, actually I may be thinking of the highlight reel where I watched it again, but is E.T. the ultimate, like the quintessential 80s kid movie, the 80s adventure? It's got to be up there. You know, there's Goonies and there's some others for sure, but this has got to be up there. I always loved the look of their eating area, their kitchen, their whole house, honestly. I know you can't see it right now with the way the camera's positioned, but the rug that I have here in the den, I tracked it down just because, well, you see these types of like braided oval rugs in a lot of the TV shows and movies from back then, but this one really, really closely resembles what was in Elliot's bedroom in E.T. Wow. Just so many great images. Trying to show you guys the best I can with my limited resources here. We are very much a DIY YouTube channel, as you know. Now this girl that Elliot kisses, that's not it. The girl that Elliot kisses in the frog scene, she went on to be, on Baywatch and stuff. Forgot her name. But she became like a swimsuit model later in life. Yeah, and the photos are a little bit more washed out on this one, which makes sense. 1982 versus 1992. And some of this stuff, some of this imagery like burned into my mind when I was a kid, and it was like a little bit like, I don't want to say disturbing, but like, or traumatizing or anything like that, but it just kind of, it creeped me out a little bit, but it stuck with me, and I think it just made some of the triumphant moments in this movie just hit home even better. After seeing all this weird stuff with him all, shriveled up and dying, getting to see him hug Elliot at the end and fly off in his spaceship, it was just resonated more, You got to go through the arc. You got to tell the full story. There has to be, the characters have to face tragedies and problems. Man, just a classic scene. Doesn't get much better than that scene for me in cinematic history. And there you have it. Scrapbook, storybook number 2. All right, I've got one more to show you guys, so let's do that right now. All right, so this last one is for my sports fans on the channel. I know I have a few, but there will surely be some cool ads in here for the rest of us. And this is my 1987 St. Louis Cardinals official scorebook. Check this out. Now, anyone that's watched the channel at all probably knows that's my favorite baseball team. I lived in Arkansas and Oklahoma growing up, and we didn't have professional teams. And I guess that's the reason why my dad and my grandfather, they introduced me to the St. Louis Cardinals. And, great players like Ozzie Smith and Jack Clark and Vince Coleman and all the guys. And it just kind of stuck with me. Do I like my local Texas Rangers now? Yes, I do, but this is my team. I've got several teams, but this is number 1 for sure. All right, let's check out the back ad, and oh my goodness. 80s summertime. Head for the mountains, Redbird fans. That's fantastic. That's almost like, I don't want to destroy this magazine, but that's almost like frame worthy for the garage right there. And I don't even like Busch beer. I just like that ad. I think that would look cool. You know, mounted and framed nicely out in the garage. We'll see. All right, let's take a quick thumb through here. Look at that old logo right there. Love it. The Chicago Tribune, that always makes me think of one of my other teams, the Chicago Cubs. As you guys know, I watched a lot of WGN baseball as a kid. And, you know, when I got lucky and got a Cardinals-Cubs game on WGN, that was just like heaven for you know, me as a kid. In 1986, the Cardinals spelled relief Todd Worrell. He was a good pitcher. Here you've randomly got an Obsession for Men ad. Pretty sure that's still around, I think. I don't know much about cologne. I will occasionally spritz some Old Spice. The classic Old Spice that everyone's grandpa and uncles wore. That's kind of what I go with, if anyone was wondering. Terry Pendleton on that previous page. Ozzie Smith, the Wizard of Oz. He used to come onto the field doing a flip, you know, a handspring and a backflip. Just so cool as a kid to see that each time. What do we have here? Peach Sparkle Club Soda. Arm & Hammer. Oh, Jose Oquendo. My aunt took me to a game against the Astros in the Astrodome way back when I was a kid, and the Cardinals were in town. And Jose Oquendo hit a home run that day. Pretty sure he was hitting out of the 8 slot, so that was a big deal for him to hit one. And here you got the roster. I'm telling you right now, I could name more of these guys than I could the current team. It's just amazing how things stick with us in our brains. Some cool stuff there. Dole, Smuckers, Totino's Pizza Rolls, Old El Paso Nachos, Fujifilm, that's a cool Gatorade ad. Put out a Major League Thirst with Gatorade. Oh wow, check that out. Channel 2 News, the team you can count on. You know, I use the MLB app to listen to games. I would actually like, oh wow, I love the old Budweiser logos. I mean, I think it's the same Budweiser logo, but you know what I mean, the old ads. Wow. And look, you can actually, like, if you're at the game that day and you're a kid in the stands with your glove on, you can actually get a pen or a pencil and write out the lineup and keep stats. Just so cool. Love stuff like that. But yeah, I listen to the MLB app. I use the MLB app to listen to broadcasts of baseball games. There's just something about sitting out on the back patio, grilling up some burgers for the family, and you know, having a cold beverage and listening to a baseball game. And that app is great because it lets you choose which feed you want to hear, which local feed do you want to listen to, which announcers. I mean, you get the local commercials and all the local ads and news people and everything. Look at that old Camry. That's pretty cool. I would take one of those. Look at that interior. I don't know if you guys can see that. Dark red burgundy carpeted and interior with vinyl accents. We knew how to do it classy back then. But yeah, if you're a baseball fan at all, like, I would honestly rather listen to a game in that setting that I just described. There are times I'd rather just listen to one like that than actually watch a game on TV. I don't know. Just something very throwback about it all. Jack Clark was another one of my favorite players as a kid. I used to launch a bunch of home runs with him on RBI Baseball. Willie McGee. You know, he and Vince Coleman both wore the batting helmets with the double ear covers, since they were switch hitters, right? They would hit from either side of the plate. All right, enough nerding out on sports stuff. We've reached the end of our magazine stack here. We'll leave it on that since I like that one so much. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun flipping through, like I said before, a stack of nostalgia. And there we are. So I hope that you all saw something in that stack of nostalgia that sparked a memory for you today. And if you did, consider subscribing. And also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax. Enjoy life and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.